Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to a special report on zombies, brought to you in association with ASB. No, this isn't a review of the latest Shaun of the Dead or Bad Taste movie. This is all about zombie financial institutions, and particularly banks in the States, but also finance companies here. Why should we worry about zombie financial institutions, and what are they? Well, zombie banks are ones that are just sitting there, not lending, so afraid of lending or so unable to lend because of toxic debt stuck on their balance sheets. Effectively, they're frozen in the headlights. Now, the way you get rid of zombie banks or zombie finance companies essentially is to force them to take their losses, to value their assets at current market prices, to write them off. Often that will mean the destruction of any shareholder value and maybe even forcing the bondholders to write down some of their value. But it does clear the decks of this toxic debt and gets the bank lending again. It may even mean that the bank has to be put into bankruptcy protection or nationalised. And that's what's happened in some countries in the past where a bank got into trouble. The government has nationalised it, or it's been allowed to go bankrupt. Now, we all look to what happened in Japan in the 1990s to get an idea of what can go wrong when you allow your banks to stay zombies. The Japanese government refused for quite some time to force their banks to lose face effectively by declaring their losses, by valuing their real estate assets and other assets at their true value. This never happened. Well, it took about a decade. In the meantime, the banks didn't do any lending and the economy stagnated. Well, now we're in this situation where the US banks are essentially insolvent, particularly the big ones. They have refused to properly write down the value of their toxic assets, and the government has failed to force them to do it. Instead, the US government is planning what it's calling a public-private investment partnership, or PPiP, to try and force up the value, the market value of these assets. And we're also seeing changes in the way that assets are valued according to US accounting standards, which means that these banks can go into denial, that they can stay zombies. But we here in New Zealand aren't immune from that either. We have a bunch of finance companies who are essentially zombies. They are stuck waiting for the property market to recover in Moratorium, and we can think there, of course, of Strategic Finance, Geneva Finance, and a bunch of others. Now, they were not forced to declare their losses to essentially go bankrupt by their shareholders. They gave them another chance. But what it means is they're left as zombies. So assets are not being sold. Everything's on hold while people wait for values to increase. And we're also hearing reports back from our biggest banks and also from some mortgage insurers that they are not forcing through mortgagee sales, and they are in many cases letting people go on mortgage holidays just so they don't have to revalue their assets. This is what I call the zombie problem. It's not so bad in New Zealand, it's a real problem in the States and in Europe, but it must be fixed, and unfortunately it means some short, sharp pain now and a growing system rather than zombies stumbling around the landscape, refusing to lend, and a depression or very long recession that lasts for decades or more. I'm Bernard Hickey with a special report on zombies, brought to you in association with ASB, which is certainly no zombie bank.